Hey folks, welcome back. I'm your host, R.R. Slugger, and today I wanted to take a quick look at the ever-intriguing theme, LEGO Studios. Inspired by Ryan's kind donation of a sealed Stuntman Catapult set to my P.O. box, thank you for that by the way, this video is going to go over several highlights of the series and hopefully provide an overview for those unfamiliar with it. It's far from exhaustive, but the goal is that my modest smattering of sets here will allow us to peer into the past and examine this interesting example of LEGO's history. Spanning the years 2000 to 2002, in my opinion, LEGO Studios was emblematic of the Just Imagine era of the company, as creative and short-lived as it was. The box art design was delightfully playful at times, though I must say that the darker backgrounds certainly evoked a sense of mystery about them. Moreover, much like the Time Cruisers series I adore, LEGO Studios was a great example of a theme that wasn't afraid to break the fourth wall. Just like how Timmy and the Doctor would jump between your LEGO universes and link them together, Studios took a macro look at the sets that surrounded it and widened the lens to include them. For example, LEGO Studios took a fan-favorite character like Johnny Thunder from the Adventurers series and showed him acting out his adventures on a film set. Does that mean that Adventurers was all a work of fiction? Who knows? You decide. Believe it or not, but even a licensed character like Spider-Man was subject to this co-branding. In fact, Spider-Man LEGO began as a studio's novelty before being later expanded into a full-fledged theme. The same can actually be said about Jurassic Park, weirdly enough, but perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. In general, the three phases of LEGO Studios break down as follows. First, there was the life on a film set phase, where most of the sets centered around a play feature and a general Hollywood-themed setting. The second phase I would describe as licensed expansion. This saw studios adopt the before-mentioned Spider-Man and Jurassic Park intellectual properties, while also teaming up with Kabaya Sweets and Coca-Cola in Japan. The final phase only contained 4 sets, but the Scary Monsters excursion is important and revered enough to be recognized as distinct. All told, this might be the most sought-after year of LEGO Studios, if Bricklink prices are any indication. So, jumping back to the turn of the century, we see LEGO Studios debut with the Steven Spielberg Movie Maker set. The history behind this kit is really fascinating, but I need only direct you to this incredible video by SillyPenta if you want to learn more. I was blown away by the depth of their research. It's a long one, but I think it's worth your time if LEGO Studios interests you. I'll leave a link to it at the end. I've never owned this set, but its impact on the brick filming scene is immeasurable. From my own experience, I likely wouldn't have even considered LEGO to be a viable option in the stop-motion medium without exposure to advertisements for this kit. Even those of us who didn't have it still benefited from its existence. Following the flagship set came over half a dozen other kits based on the film set aesthetic. These are personally some of my favorite toys the company ever made. I know, that might come as a shock, as I've hardly ever mentioned them on this channel before, but I have an intense nostalgia for this phase of LEGO Studios, which, I must add, is pretty rare for me. The vast majority of sets I've covered on this channel are ones that I've only come to purchase as an adult. Time Cruisers, Orient Expedition, heck, all of 90s space doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies the way that LEGO Studios does, and I'm not entirely sure why. I could try to analyze it as an adult, examine how the box art and the theme aesthetics play to my personal preferences, but in the end, I guess I was just a kid, and these sets left a lasting impression on me. I've talked about 1355 Temple of Gloom before, but it bears repeating. To me, this set is up there with the Granite Grinder or Hypno Cruiser in personifying a perfect LEGO set. So much is achieved with so little, but again, my lens is about as rose-colored as it gets when looking at this one. 1354 Dino Head Attack is probably the set that best pairs with the original Movie Maker kit, as it expands upon the potential of the dinosaur builds included there. As a standalone model, it's a little weaker, but the minifigures included are fantastic. The baby T-Rex returns from Dino Island, as does Pip and Reed. though she's wearing some of her attire from her journey to Egypt. Maybe they're filming a sequel. Combined with the figures from Temple of Gloom, you get both a key grip and camera op figure as well. I love the detail on their torsos, and their positions in the department are displayed prominently on their backs. Stellar minifigures. Oh, and Johnny Thunder's there too. Now, if only we had a director. Well, believe it or not, but this tiny stuntman set actually gives us 2 minifigures. Of course, we get the titular stuntman himself, but we also get our director as well, complete with working slate. Maybe he's here to tell his stunt performer what emotions to convey as he's flung from this catapult over a wall of fire. My sympathy. That looks like a tough gig. Eagle-eyed viewers might have already noticed a bit of a Rock Raiders reunion going on here. Indeed, both Dox and Sparks feature prominently throughout the series, apparently finding work in the film industry after returning to Earth. Or maybe the story of Rock Raiders was a movie this whole time. It wouldn't be the first time that happened. In 2001, LEGO Studios would enter its licensed expansion phase, and another former Rock Raider would join the roster. Along with Dox and Sparks, Axel would reappear, this time featuring in the Kabaya toy line that he missed out on back in Rock Raiders. Unlike the Rock Raiders Kabaya sets though, these toys were repackaged and sold outside Japan, so they remain quite plentiful on the aftermarket. The same cannot quite be said about the Coca-Cola promotional poly bags. These almost always have to be imported, and there are certainly some head scratchers among the bunch. Regrettably, there are also some set-exclusive parts included in a few of these, so parting them out secondhand can be quite difficult. Still, they're a neat novelty if nothing else. Perhaps more interesting than the Kabaya or Coca-Cola offerings, though, are the intellectual properties that were brought into the fold this year. 1371 Spinosaurus Attack Studio makes great use of the incredible modular creature system introduced in LEGO Dinosaur. Why LEGO ever retired this system, I'll never know. This Spinosaurus does circles around the dinos of today and features several exclusive parts, including these printed 2x2 slopes. The overall visual design is top-notch, and there's even a brand on its hip. Not only that, but when you buy this dinosaur, you also get all this other stuff too. I'll admit that I'm not a big fan of the proportions of the airplane, but the way in which it easily hangs suspended in the tree more than makes up for it. The tree itself is a fun build, featuring a ton of parts in the old brown color. Flipping it around reveals a large metal support beam keeping the whole thing standing. I love this. LEGO Studios never fails in delivering the small details of working on a film set. Of course the tree is artificial. You think they have the budget to film on location? Actually, that raises a good point. Visually, LEGO Studios appears to be based in the golden age of Hollywood. Everything is shot on film, and there's a general prestige to the whole affair. A LEGO Studios line set in modern times would likely include a green screen or the volume. Well, I'm glad we didn't get that. It would be fun to see a return to this series. Spider-Man was the final property to be licensed under the LEGO Studios umbrella. Coinciding with the movie released around that time, apparently it was also directed by Steven Spielberg. Huh. Nonetheless, these early Spider-Man sets leaned into their studio origins before acting like they never knew the theme a year later.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Oh, hey Toby. It's me, Steven. Looks like I missed you again, eh? Anyways, let me know if you're getting these. Let me know if you're getting these messages. I miss you. LEGO Studios would have one final matinee before it went into syndication, with 2002's Scary Monsters phase. This wave consisted of 4 sets, which have proven to be really difficult for me to find. I've never seen either of the larger ones in person before, so I only have one small outing to share with you today: 1383 Curse of the Pharaoh. With a name like that, you'd expect to see this set featured in something like Adventurers. In reality, it actually resembles a popular set from that theme's inaugural year, 5938 Oasis Ambush. Both feature an opening crypt and a skeleton within. Curse of the Pharaoh is fairly unique in that it features both a classic skeleton face print and the more sinister redesign, both within the same set. I think this is the only one to do so. The latter skull design here also glows in the dark, which is a much appreciated feature to include in such a tiny set. The print design work of the mummy takes more than a few cues from Pharaoh Hotep, minus the toes. However, it does add a reversible head so the mummy can come to life before our eyes. I wish I had more to show you, but like I said, this is just about all I have from this final phase. And unfortunately, 2002 was the end of LEGO Studios. I think it's arguable to say that the series was facing a bit of an identity crisis, and might have had a slim chance at a fourth season even in the best of times. The LEGO Group was grasping at straws, looking for a way to make the brick relevant again in an emerging digital age. However, even given the circumstances surrounding the theme, I still find a lot of merit in the sets we got, and I cherish how LEGO Studios was able to capture my imagination at a young age. This might seem like an anticlimactic end, but I've saved the best for last. Let's make sure we go out with a bang.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
Yes, sir. But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Get out!
3,
Get out of there! Get out!
1.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Once again, this video was brought to you by the folks who support me during the Summer of Slug. If you want to join their ranks, please check the link in the description. Mechtropolis is just around the corner. Stay tuned for a video update on how to submit your models this year. I've been your host, RR Slugger, and I'll see you next time for another video.